Chapter 21. Captivity Day Number 23. Kali. The front door of masculinity made it distinct from the rest of the flesh row architecture. There was no glass, no wood, no decorations. Just a dull grey metal door. It was featureless except for a slat at roughly eye level. They paused a few feet from the door. "Not very inviting," Ujaran remarked, as he turned his head to admire the colourful graffiti out front, which was the only indication they were at the right place. "How are you feeling?" she asked. Still tingling, he answered like he'd been waiting to be asked. Still grinning, too, Kali slapped the side of his tail and sashayed up to the door. The slat slid open. A black-furred face with bright yellow eyes peered out at her. "The cover charge is 100 credits, they said first in Terran Common and again in Reptilian Common as Ujaran walked up beside her. The door opened inward and closed swiftly behind them. The entry area was a dimly lit hallway approximately 6 feet wide and 3 times that in length. There was a counter built into the wall ahead of them on the left, and a sliding door at the end of the hallway with a domed light fixture hanging above it. The gatekeeper was large and wolfish with a build and attire indicative to being predominantly quadrupedal. Having encountered their species before, it was obvious to Kali that they were female. "Wow, you're a Myco, Names are not used here," the gatekeeper growled menacingly as it motioned toward the counter. "I was just going to ask," Kali began as Ujaran took her by the arm and urged her forward. There was a sham Farian wearing cat ears and glowing whiskers waving them over from behind the counter. At the near end of the counter, flush with the wall, there was a ceiling height panel with the club rules engraved in the surface. "First-time visitors or returning?" the sham Farian asked. "First time," Ujaran and Kali both answered. "Welcome to Nim. For convenience, the servers here are all called Kitty. Please take a moment to familiarize yourself with the house rules. Are you fully dressed, or will you be renting masks or add-ons tonight?" The server tapped one of their fake ears and swished their behind to show off a simulated cat tail as they said add-ons. Every third rule was a repetition of no names, each more emphatic than the last. Some of the other rules dealt with implied consent zones. Playing with, feeding, or handling the kitties was strictly prohibited. All patrons were to regard each other as the species they were dressed as, and to ask if they were unsure. The last rule caught her a little off guard. People couldn't leave while there was someone waiting to enter. Ujaran activated his translating ability. "How does that tail attach?" Ujaran asked. "You have 2 choices, belts or butt plugs," Kitty answered with a smile. "Not that you'd need one. How about your friend?" Kali smiled as she partially unwound her tails. "I guess not," Kitty laughed. "Rules question?" Kali asked. "Does the species thing apply up here too? If somebody tried asking about us, what would your answer be?" She looked them up and down, grinned broadly, and said, "An attractive Shagar couple, of course. If someone is supposed to be meeting you here later, I'd recommend you tell them to look for the Shagar with a tail." Kali smiled, paid the cover charge, and thanked her. "One more thing," the kitty said. "The inside light is on when there are people waiting to enter, off when it's clear. There's a waiting and changing area up front, if you ever need it. If you two are ready, I can let you in now." The sliding door opened as they approached. Once they crossed the threshold, the exterior light turned off. The sliding door closed, and a second door to their right opened into the club. The tip of Ujaran's tail brushed against the back of her calves as they walked in together. Kali felt a twinge at the base of her tails. The grin on his face began to fade. The door closed once they were a couple steps inside. There must have been a pressure plate. "I know," Kali said sadly. "I'd rather be holding your tail too." The club was surprisingly spacious and crowded. The front room had a bar against the wall on the right, carved out of white wood with black trim. Assorted bottles were arranged on the shelves behind it. On the left side of the room, there was a curved platform with a narrow set of stairs leading up to it on either side. A sound suppression field encircled the small dance floor. It was large enough for maybe 5 people in total, but was not currently in use. Between those areas and the door there were a pair of tables with 5 stools each. Beyond the bar and dance floor were several booths, 2 of which were corner booths, and a hallway beyond that leading further into the building. The bartender and 3 other kitties were working the front room. At least one more kitty was running things back and forth to a kitchen area somewhere further inside. The kitty tending bar was the only male wearing the telltale whiskers and ears. Carly couldn't see a tail from where she was standing, but it was a safe assumption that he had one. All of the kitties looked Shamfarian, the most common subterran species. It could be discriminatory hiring practices, or it could just be a popular job for members of the species responsible for popularizing cat girls. There were 3 or 4 dozen patrons just in the front room. Generally, the masks and outfits weren't fooling anyone, but they were fun to look at. Caninoid and subterran species masks were the most common in the front area, although there was one Mongani wearing a Dareth mask. Their ape-like body looked comical wearing a night black mask against their grey fur. I thought I'd wait up here as a diversion for Lilac, but there aren't any other Shagar up here, Ujaran remarked. You'll just have to push in further, you're good at that, right? Carly teased as she walked past him. She could hear him walking behind her. She turned her head, just before entering the hallway, seeing someone raise their drink. The Mongani was just letting one of the kitties know they wanted a refill. The hallway to the next area was at a slight downward angle, making it harder to see who was there from the previous room. Carly was a little disappointed that it was just a cafeteria with 2 counters and graffiti-covered walls, but it did have a much larger assortment of customer species. A few of the Terran types were wearing what were either unpainted white masks or meant to represent Lamentics. The Lupian masks were the most popular of the Caninoid-type masks. There were some wearing Shagar or reptilian masks, but they didn't seem very popular. There seemed to be a lot more casual conversation. There was what looked like a freight elevator at the back of the large rounded room, which seemed to be being watched as if people were waiting for something to happen. There were additional hallways on either side of the room. Each had a sign over the entryway, and the letters EO written in large letters on the wall on the other side of the corridor. There was an arrow pointing deeper into the building in the center of each O. Are you hungry? Ujaran asked. Not until you asked, Carly chuckled. Good. Eat what you want, he said. I'll pay. The line moved briskly. The kitties knew their job well, and were very efficient. She motioned to the hallway sign as she asked, which side do you want to sit on, Glorious or Blinders? Let me think. I felt Glorious before, and may need Blinders after, Ujaran chuckled. I like the middle. Carly lowered her head, bit her lip, and blushed brightly as she followed him to a table. Why are you blushing? He asked after he finished situating his tail so he could sit comfortably. I noticed someone with a blank mask and white wig, and was spacing out thinking of someone, and then you said that, and... It's not possible to have you in the middle of that, but the mental picture was worth admission. It's not. Unperfected, Carly thought to him. He tilted his head from one side to the other, then a sudden look of realization came across his face. It's not even a conscious thing. She's always rolling around in my head somewhere, usually naked and glistening. Carly sighed loudly enough to startle herself. She could hear scattered laughing through the room. Ujaran's eyes darted around the room. Now that you have everyone's attention. Carly giggled as he went back to eating. A minute or two later, A Kaiman wearing a Lupian mask walked up next to the table, cleared his throat and asked Ujaran, "Are you two together?" "Why?" Ujaran said as he eyed Kali. "I'm just asking," the Kaiman said. "I'm not trying to start trouble or anything." Ujaran began to laugh as Kali continued to giggle. "What's so funny?" he said indignantly. "I heard this joke," Ujaran said, trying not to laugh. "There's a wolf walking through a field and he comes across this little lizard sunning itself on the foot of the queen of fucking Cletheria, and he turns to the lizard and says..." He was laughing too hard to continue. "What?" the fake Lupian asked. "Are you two together?" Kali asked through pursed lips. Their visitor looked back and forth between them, baffled. "He means you asked the wrong person," Kali admonished him. "Get back here," Kali said as the Kaiman started slinking away. "Just sit down," she sighed. "I've never been here before, and I have some questions I'd like you to answer. After you've answered mine, I'll answer whatever weird question you were dared to ask. Deal?" He nodded enthusiastically as he sat down by the table. "The letters in the circles at the end of the hallway, what do they mean?" "EO stands for Eternal Orgy. It's in a room where both of those hallways meet." "It means what?" Ujaran said in shock. "It's a never-ending sex party. People come and go whenever they want," the Kaiman answered falteringly. "There's usually at least one or two people in there." Kali winced. "Okay, what about the hallways?" "Glorious is implied consent. The blinder hallway isn't, but the rooms are," he said nervously. Ujaran went back to eating. "That doesn't really answer my question," Kali scolded. "Have you ever heard of a glory hole?" Ujaran choked momentarily. Kali looked at them both in confusion as Ujaran entered something into his tablet and slid it across the table to her. She scowled in disgust as she read the definition, then passed it back. "I don't think anyone actually uses it," the Kaiman shrugged. "I heard they're planning to replace it." "What about?" "Actually, why is there an elevator?" Kali asked. "Special events," the false wolf said. "They run them every hour or two. They're like competitions. They let in a limited number of people, and provide details when they're announced." "Okay, the one you were planning to ask me about was blinders, right? Your surface thoughts are far too obvious. What's blinders?" "They're private group sex rooms where one or more participants agree to be blindfolded so they don't know who's touching where." "I'll think about it," Kali said with a coy smile. "Ask me again after I'm done eating." "Yes, he said excitedly, then rushed back to tell his friends. "Are you seriously considering that?" Ujaran asked. "Would you think less of me if I ran off to be pleasured by a room full of guys?" Kali asked testingly. "I wouldn't object if it was me in a room full of pretty Shagar girls," he shrugged. "Other than being bored while I wait, I don't think I have any room to object." "You could just look for a Shagar girl or two to entertain you," Kali winked. "I don't know if that would do it," he said thoughtfully. "I think I prefer half and half now." Kali covered her mouth and giggled uncontrollably. After regaining her composure, Kali looked around the room to see how many masked Shagar women she could see in the area. "Come with me," she said to Ujaran. "I want to say hi to someone and you're coming with." Kali took Ujaran by the hand and led him over to a table where 3 masked Shagar were sitting. "Hey," she said to a Shagar dressed as a bird. "I just wanted to thank you for telling me about this place." "Do I know you?" the girl asked. Kali gently pushed an image of herself wearing her fox mask, with normal coloration, into the girl's mind as she spoke. "It was the day you tripped in the street. You commented on my other mask. I was done up differently then. I was helping on service patrol." "Oh, I remember now," the girl exclaimed. "I'm glad you made it here." "Me, too," Kali smiled warmly. "I was thinking about you earlier while we were at the playhouse. The Shagar and Erinarax were really something. As if on cue, the rest of the girls at the table jumped into the conversation. After mentioning the two of them spent intermission in Ayeta's secret balcony, and they were old friends, Ujaran became the most interesting person in the room. The women were big fans of the play and barely acknowledged Kali when she asked if they'd mind keeping him company while she went to talk to someone. Ujaran seemed to be enjoying being the center of attention. Kali was still grinning smugly as she returned to the table. It was nice to be able to use her powers of manipulation for good for a change. A group of Kaimun confidently approached the table, with the one she'd spoken to earlier taking up the rear. She may have responded more favorably if he'd approached alone, but the entire litter was following him. He was reasonably cute. She might have considered tossing him a ball, but with his 5 friends in tow? Kali stood, turned to the shy pup, and said, "No, not today." She flashed the good puppy a sympathetic glance, then scowled. She felt an unwelcome presence. Lilac had arrived. She walked down the glorious hallway far enough to be sure nobody could see her, activated her cloak of the unnoticed ability, and explored for a while enjoying people watching unobserved. After getting bored, she walked back through the cafeteria and returned to the front. Lilac was sitting at the bar, and Ujaran had gotten a booth with the Shagar girls. "Hey," Kali thought to him, "I'm ready to leave, any time you are." I hoped Lilac would have given up by now. Kali watched him, while listening for deliberate thoughts. I told her you were participating in one of their events, Ujaran thought with intent. She'll have no reason to look for you until this one ends and they start the next. More than anything else, she wanted to go for a walk. Lilac was between her and the exit. Jax was probably electronically monitoring her. Kali wondered if this was how it would feel to be an animal trying to avoid a muzzle flash in a field full of hunters. She walked to the area near the elevator to see if she could find out anything about these special events. There was a wall console for reserving yourself a slot in the next event, but that was about it. Interacting with the console would negate her psionic obfuscation. Hopefully, it would tell her more once she registered her ID chip. Registering brought up a form listing approximately a dozen events, which could be opted into by checking a box. Whoever designed the sign-up form should be taken out and shot, and then fired. Every box was checked by default. Recording devices were strictly prohibited, which meant she could hide from her observers by entering an event. The number of entrants affected the random selection process. The maximum number of entries admitted was contingent on event biological sex ratio requirements. There was a lot of information in the form, but it was missing a key component. It would be nice if they included descriptions of the events. She had to guess what they were based on the event name. Flash tag sounded like it could be fun, but will it fit sounded horrifying. You'd think they'd give you some idea what to expect in an implied consent area. Kali grumbled as she went through the list deselecting events with names that sounded bad. Gropey's Den was one of the first events she deselected. Kali looked around the room before confirming her selections. There were a lot more people than earlier, and more were heading into the room from the adjoining hallways. Only 3 of roughly a dozen kitties remained. She clicked confirm, then wandered over to the main counter where one of the kitties was posted. "More water?" the kitty asked. "I could use a new glass," Kali said. "I was wondering where all the other servers went." "They're cleaning the orgy room," Kitty said while filling a fresh cup. "They get started on it just before each event ends. It gives the frolickers a chance to come up here and find out what's up next. It gives them time to sign up for the next one if they want." "What?" How do they find out? I just signed up without knowing anything about it. Carly blinked in disbelief. I saw that, Kitty said. You're pretty bold. I would never sign up that far in advance. I'd wait until the event coordinator made the announcement and started the next push. I didn't know, Carly blurted out. Can I take back my entry? Did you finalize it? Yes. Sorry, but once submitted, no. The chairs were all filling up. Carly grabbed her drink and rushed to find a seat while there was still some available. Carly smiled weakly at the other people seated at the table with her. She listened as they talked among themselves. Most of them were planning on entering the next event just for the hot showers before and after it. The showers by the orgy room were tepid at best, and the water pressure had much to be desired. Some races weren't permitted in the club, due to safety concerns, but she was surprised by some of the species that were present. The curiosity finally got the best of her. She turned her attention to a masked woman who was clearly an Erinarax. I'm sorry, Carly said, I have to ask. The avian woman rolled her eyes. Vaginal gauging. It took a couple years. Yes, it makes it difficult to have sex with males of my species. Those are the usual 3. Did you have a question I'm not asked by everyone who talks to me here? I have a Siavani friend who fell in love with a Laika. Carly rushed to ask a different question. Do you have any advice I could pass along? Gary annoyed Syntholo, so Carly had no intention of passing on any information, but she pretended to listen just to avoid further awkwardness. The elevator door opened and people started flooding into the room. It was holding more people than she expected. It looked like a metal hallway that moved between floors. The elevator looked large enough to accommodate 50 passengers. These events were clearly the primary draw of NIM. A tone sounded throughout the club. A voice came over the intercom announcing the end of the Gropes Den event, first in Terran Common, and again in Bestial Common. The avian voiced her disappointment. It was apparently her favorite event. Carly asked her what sort of event it was, and missed the announcement of the next event while listening to the description. It was a Touch Me event in which everyone stripped naked and was sent down a pitch-black hallway with a slow strobe that lit randomly. You couldn't see who you were touching or where, as you tried to make your way, as a group, to the end. It was a fairly long hallway that varied in width. The unintended, random touching was the entire point. It was a sex-free event. I missed it, the woman asked. Is tag next? No, it's Shuffle, a light-complected male with light violet hair and elaborate skull face paint replied. They looked like some variety of Terran. I think I'll call it a night, the avian grumbled, then got up and walked off. What's Shuffle? Carly asked. It's a hell of an event, as long as you're not sex-averse, the violet-haired man said. I'm not, Carly shrugged. Why would someone come here if? Some don't like the actual screwing, but still like being touched, I guess, he chuckled. Everyone has their own thing. You never know. In this one, the number of men they let into the events depends on the number of women participating. If you walk with me to the coordinator, you'll be helping me get a slot. It's a fun event if you like sex, he said as he held out his hand across the table to her. He had gentle angular features and a rugged build. Carly finished sizing him up, and decided she wouldn't turn him down in other circumstances, so why would she now? Why not? She said as she took his hand. Soul touch. A Lampharian. Carly tried to conceal her blush as she marched to the elevator with him, hand in hand. She had missed this feeling so much. He may not be cyanide, but the feeling of his touch was just what she needed. The checklist was only for pre-registration. He only had to sign up for the current event. After they were both checked in, they were directed onto the elevator. It's easier here if we make up names to call each other, Carly said. Is Violet okay? Thank you, he said softly. I appreciate your help, but you can let go of my hand now. It's not a team event. I need this, Carly said. My Tejmare is lamentic. I can't be with her right now. I've gone too long without feeling soul touch. Please. If there are showers before we go in, I'll even wash you down, to show my gratitude, if you'll let me. She was making him uncomfortable. She needed to back off. Which house? He asked without letting go of her hand, although she could tell he wanted to. Soul touch could reveal a lot about a person. Carly racked her brain. There are 5, let me think. I should have committed them to memory. I know she's Itaran Goran like my half-brother, Killan like Aisha, one sounded like Hystrom. The same house as the new Tsarina, whatever that is. I'm sorry, I just don't remember them all. They'll separate us on the way in, he said while looking at their clasped hands. Maybe in the exit shower? That's an impressive lineage. Is she unperfected or something? I don't agree with that, Carly scoffed. I think she's perfect, no matter what the court calls her. She could tell he was from a lesser family. Soul touch works both ways. The feeling of reverence she felt in him was undeniable. Just call me Tails, Carly smiled warmly. Want to get a drink after the event? He asked. Sure, she said as the elevator started moving. There were 16 other people with them. Half were male, and half were female. I really should have paid more attention, Carly said apprehensively. What's the point of this event? They call it quick shuffle, he said louder than necessary. We regulars call it speed fucking, nearly everyone said in unison. There were 18 participants in total. The event would consist of 9 5-minute rounds, each spent with a different partner. No names were allowed, but nicknames weren't hard to come up with. 25 minutes later. I'm not worried about getting hurt, Carly snickered. I know what will happen if I start to enjoy it. Violence turns me on, and if I lose control. Mongani are far stronger and more durable than Subterrans, the male Mongani insisted. Carly felt like he was mocking her, although there was no sign of it in his voice or expression. Regardless of any underlying intention, he was underestimating her. Carly sat there quietly stewing in her rage. It's just better genetics, he said as he reached for her. His action triggered her combat empathy. Carly responded instinctively. A loud pop resounded through the room as she grabbed him by the wrist and forearm and flung him through the air, slamming him to the ground on the other side of the desk. He laid there panting and whimpering in pain, his other arm and legs pinned to the ground by her tails, as she stepped onto his shoulder and tried to align his dislocated arm. I tried to warn you, Carly sneered. Mongani are such a frail and feeble species. You just have inferior genetics. She slammed his arm back into the socket with the heel of her foot. Everyone was staring at her. Sorry about that. Carly blushed as she released him and sat back on her desk. If you heard the full discussion you'd understand. He was just explaining the genetic superiority of Mongani. He groaned and rubbed his tender shoulder as he got back on his feet. Ape Girl rushed to his side, leaving the Elysian sitting alone at her desk. His necklace, the Mongani woman said angrily. The only way a Subterran could best a Mongani is by cheating. The Elysian opted out of the remainder of the 6th round. I adopted twin Jar Gelatin boys who enjoy wrestling, Carly sneered. You have Kobe Tamj. Do you think you could do any better? The coordinator rushed over to prevent things from escalating further. He thinks I'm just a Subterran, Carly snarled as she slapped her tails against the floor. The Mongani male opted out of the remainder of the 6th round. She looked down and took a deep breath, trying to regain her composure. There was a thin strip of milky white liquid where he'd been laying on the floor. We got rid of the Lupian after 3 of us opted out, Cowgirl said. Can we get rid of her too? I don't think opting out counts if they bust a nut when they hit the floor, Carly scoffed. I can hold a vote. The coordinator seemed stressed. Do all Leica women get preferential treatment here, or just cow patty? Carly sighed. Don't bother with the vote. Just call the elevator and I'll go. Strawberry, find me upstairs so I can get your information. You need mine too, the Elysian said as he rushed off toward the men's area. Carly stormed through the curtain, over to her locker, dropped her robe on the floor, and put on her communication hardware. There was a message waiting for her from Ujaran. She smiled at the sound of Strawberry reaching climax. That hadn't taken Pendulum long. Carly checked the message while getting changed. Lilac had given up and left. She shot him back a message to let him know she needed him to help her store information for 2 contacts, one of which would have to be forwarded to a friend, a childcare consultant for her and her kids. She told him the other she'd explain when she got up there in a few minutes. Carly could hear them arguing in the main room as she approached the curtain. Strawberry wanted to leave too, having no interest in the remaining 3 guys in her lineup. That would leave them 2 girls down with only 3 partners remaining. There's only 20 minutes left, Carly said as she stepped through the curtain. I'm willing to wait for more Strawberry. We haven't even held a vote, the coordinator insisted, and it's the men who vote on a woman's removal from this event. Don't bother, Carly scoffed. I already know the outcome, and I'm leaving. You think you know how everyone will vote? Cowgirl scoffed. You're even more egotistical than I thought. Do you want me to walk you through the reasoning? Carly sighed. Or should I just go? Just go, Cowgirl said angrily. I'd like to hear it, Ratgirl said. Me too, the Lupian woman said. The 2 who opted out with me and the cow's friend are likely to vote for me leaving. That's 3. I built a reasonable rapport with the 3 guys I've been with, so they're likely to want me to stay. That's 3 versus 3. Then there are the 3 guys I haven't played with yet. Violet will likely vote to keep me so I don't change my mind about having drinks with him. Unless both guys I haven't been with decide they'd rather not play with me, the final vote should be for me to stay. At this point, I'd rather beat the cow to death with the unimpressive monkey girl. Bring it, the Mongani woman growled. So scary, Cowgirl mocked. Carly turned to face the coordinator. Is the elevator here yet? It's on the way. The coordinator threw up her hands in frustration. Wait, the Elysian said, rushing into the room. Carly met him by the Udbar woman's desk. For the children, he said while handing Carly a digital business card. Thank you, Carly muttered as she slid it into a pocket. Cowgirl was on the desk to her left. The Darien and Mongani woman were at the desk to her right. A stream of blue telepathic energy was connecting the 3 of them. Carly reached her hand into the thought stream of the Darien's mental link. Strawberry, Carly said, you're leaving with me. I thought you wanted me to stay, the Herisham asked. What's changed? The male Mongani was 1 station away, and Green Man was sitting across from her. These 3 are planning to attack you on the elevator, Carly said as she forced a feeling of intense pain through the link. The blue-skinned Darien, Cowgirl, and the Mongani woman all collapsed to the floor in agony. The male Mongani leapt at Strawberry, but was met by a downward punch from Green Man. I'm calling security, the event coordinator said urgently. I'm done playing, Carly roared. The next person who acts with aggression toward me or her will be leaving here in a mop bucket. This is your first and final warning. I think she means it, Violet chuckled softly. She withdrew her hand from the flow of the mental link. Does everyone understand me? I'll be right back, Strawberry yelled over as she bolted through the curtain. I have to get changed. Sorry about all this mess, Carly said to the green woman. Please thank your fiancé for me. Why? It looked like he enjoyed it, the woman smiled. He doesn't get to play the part of the noble strong man around me often. I still appreciate it, Carly shrugged. Strawberry emerged from the curtain, bare naked, carrying her personal effects close against her chest. She bopped over toward Carly, who met her in the middle of the circle of desks. Do we have to wait for security? Carly asked. I'm pretty sure things will settle down once you've left, the coordinator grumbled. I'll show you both to the elevator. For the record, Carly said over her shoulder as they walked away, I enjoyed meeting most of you. Once they were on the elevator, Carly pulled down her Shagar mask and helped Strawberry get dressed. She wore dark jeans, with a leather belt, a practical bra, a grey knit sweater that hung loose over one shoulder, a jade pendant with matching earrings, and a white cat mask with a red bow tied to the left ear. Carly grinned. It may be a kimono-style robe, I'm really still just wearing a robe, and you're so dressed. Carly wrapped her tails back around her like an obi. Let's go find that friend of yours, Strawberry said as the elevator door opened. Do you know a good place where we can all talk privately? Carly asked, while reaching behind her and resting her hand on her behind. Strawberry mirrored the gesture. They guided each other off the elevator, ass in hand. I might, Strawberry said as they continued toward the hallway leading toward the bar area. I'm hoping we can be more than just a fling, Carly said with a devious smile. I'm thinking friends that like to fuck. If things go well, I'll set you up with a job interview with a friend. A job? Doing what? Strawberry snickered. Carly pulled her in close and pushed her back against the side of the hallway. Can you access the contact list stored in my pendant? Carly asked, then kissed her. Not unless the file is open, Strawberry whispered between kisses. Carly opened her visual interface, scrolled down to Tyrell's entry, and opened it, while caressing her pinkish-haired friend. I see the file. Copy it to your list. Carly breathed shakily, then opened her mouth, kissing Strawberry with tongue this time. Don't block the hallway, you know better, a kitty scolded them while passing by. I have it, Strawberry whispered as their lips separated. We should probably keep moving, Carly smiled. One more. Strawberry asked, then whispered, What's that for? Carly pushed her body against her and kissed the side of her neck. Send a message to that address, Carly said as she pulled away. Tell him the twins' mother will be sending him a file soon. Mysterious, Strawberry giggled as they continued down the hallway. I have to be careful, Carly said as they stepped out of the hallway into the area with booths. Carly used thought to text to send a quick message to Ujaran. I picked up a date. Where can we meet you? I'll explain in person. Content not available, Strawberry said with a pout. I use thought to text. Carly smiled coyly. It's more secure for me. I've gotten confirmation your friend got that weird message, Strawberry said with a sidelong glance. A reply message arrived while Carly was looking around for any available booths. There weren't any. My friend is at the table closest to the entrance, Carly said. The cloak and dagger stuff is going to have to get more elaborate for a little while. I really don't have a choice. I hope it doesn't bother you. Strawberry took hold of both of Carly's hands and pulled them together, until their masks were touching, and they could feel each other's breath on their lips. Is someone stalking you? It's a lot more complicated than that, Carly whimpered. But in a way, yes. Do you know who? Her Heresham friend sounded deeply concerned. It's not just one person, but one of them is a guy named Jax, Carly explained. He's the cyberpath in charge of the Lightwave relay system. He's been monitoring all my transmissions, and watching me by satellite ever since he found out I was here. Fuck, Strawberry hissed. That would spook anyone. The contact I had you copy is a retired cyberpath friend of mine. He's good and really careful, but there's not much he can do to help me way out here. I can't just send him a message saying I made a new friend. He won't just take your word for it. I have to do this in a way that my friend will know it's legitimate, and Jax doesn't know I'm getting help. There's a lot more to the story. I need help from someone Jax and the people he works with has no reason to connect to me. I just need someone to be my messenger, who'd know how to get around a cyberpath better than another cyberpath. So, I'm hoping. What's in it for me? Strawberry asked. Her eyes danced, and she smiled deviously as she traced her hand down Carly's hip. Carly grabbed onto the Haresham's belt. I'm offering that whether or not you agree to help, but I could probably arrange for you to be paid by the message or something. I won't say no to the sex or the money, especially if it involves shikoku. The term was still new to her. Strawberry was into sham fairy and tentacle porn, and having 3 prehensile tails caress her was the closest she'd ever come to experiencing it. Come on. Carly grinned as she led her new ally to Ujaran's table by her belt strap. It was one of the 5 stool tables near the door. Take out your tablet, Carly said to Ujaran in a commanding, yet sultry tone. I need you to take 2 pictures and send a message to Azuri for me. Is this? Ujaran began. Just call me Strawberry, the Haresham said weakly. I think I have this sorted out, Carly said. Let me just. It's nice to meet you, Ujaran said, holding out his hand. Carly straightened Strawberry's mask, draped one of her lightest pink locks in front, snapped a picture with her communications module, and sent a copy to Tyrell with the message. Great color, remind you of anyone? Carly waited until Strawberry was done shaking Ujaran's hand and pulled her close. Okay, can you take a picture of the 2 of us? This one's for his wife, Carly said while holding her hip to hip. His wife, Strawberry said with a start. She lets him play, Carly smiled. She just likes to know who with. Should I lift up the mask so she can see my face? Is no need. She will see you are with Adiaksi. Is good. What did he call you? Strawberry whispered. No names, Ujaran said apologetically as he took the picture with his tablet. I slip. I have picture. What now? Just send it to your partner and ask her if she minds if we take you home to do unspeakable things with you. Well, unless she likes to hear the details, like my Tejmare. Ujaran began typing furiously, looked up, and said, I did not tell her we dye your skin for night out. Shoot. Carly laughed. Hand her your tablet, so you can send your wife a picture of us in our matching Shagar masks. No. What did she tell you to call her? He asked Strawberry. Tails, she answered. Of course, she did. He smiled toothlessly. Has been long strange day. Forgive my manners. He stood and motioned over one of the kitties who was working the front. All stand now. We wait kitty, he said firmly. Kitty, we're 3 and is no booth after I give up mine. I do not want rude people interrupt our talk. Can girls sit on stacked chairs, or other thing you suggest? That's bad for the chairs, the kitty and Strawberry said in unison. We keep spare stools by the dance floor, the kitty said as he picked up a pair of stools. I'll take care of these for you. Ujaran rearranged the remaining stools and invited the women to sit back down. How was event? Ujaran asked. Why aren't you using tongues? Carly asked. I'm practice, he grumbled. Okay, Carly shrugged. Suit yourself. Tails is fast now, Ujaran asked. What happened event? It was fine, Carly shrugged. I went in, met new people, and fucked them. I think I made a couple friends, but only one I want to keep close. A couple enemies too, Strawberry teased. I didn't kill anyone, Carly insisted then sighed. I probably should have. They were planning to go after her to get back at me. I'm worried they might try something later. I want to bring Strawberry back with us tonight, so I know she's safe. She's a cyberpath, so I can't just check on her to make sure she's okay. Ujaran tilted his head from side to side. Not understood. I will use tongues, and you tell again. Once he'd activated his translation knack ability, Kali and Strawberry took turns re-explaining what happened at the end of the event. He'd known something had happened because Kali seemed to be rushing to get things done. I understand, Ujaran said. This is a problem for us. Everything in the containment area is recorded. I must return Tails or there will be trouble. I do not know what the two who are watching most closely will do if we bring Strawberry back. The Herisham raised an eyebrow, quizzically, but just listened. I know, Kali grumbled. I can't even get her contact information without it further complicating things. We need to circumvent Jax. He knows I'm connected to Double Dick over here, so it's not safe for him to pass on messages with clear meanings, but if I had him let you know we want a delivery of fresh strawberries, it should be a safe way to let you know we want to see you. It would be better if I actually bring some with me, Strawberry smiled. Kali nodded. Double D, if you sent a message to someone asking if they could confirm a rumor about a Midnight Fellowship-owned fruit delivery service in the area, what do you think would happen? I'm not sure, he considered, but I can find out. I took a picture of you too, Strawberry said with a grin. If I send you a copy, you'll have me in your message history without adding me as a contact. We can just communicate back and forth by adding comments to the image. She took off her jade pendant and held it toward Ujaran. He moved his tablet toward it until it beeped, then returned his attention to his tablet while Strawberry put her pendant back on. That's a help, Kali smirked. Now to convince Tyrell he can talk to you for me. I give up. Do you have a picture of yourself with that hair color you could send him? I already sent him the one I took with a lock of your hair against your mask. I hope that will be enough for him. What should I put for a message with the image? That's where I'm getting stuck, Kali admitted. He has to know it's legitimate. I guess, tell him you were told he could use an assistant, and his employer wants him to make sure to have a bed ready for you in 36 days. What makes you think I'd want to work with some random old guy? Ask him for an exterior shot of the array we stole from Cyberop Gregor, Kali grinned. Why am I wet? Strawberry said. You two will get along just fine, Kali snickered. Okay, then, Strawberry said with a blush. I know which picture I'm sending him. Tails, Ujaran said. I need your hand. Kali held out her hand, and laughed as he slapped it. Azuri talked to Ayeta, he said while wagging a finger at her. They say you are trouble. Is that all she said? Kali asked tauntingly. No. Strawberry looked back and forth between them for a solid minute before saying, I feel like I'm missing half of the conversation. Are you two doing telepathic things? We went to the playhouse earlier, caught the show, had a threesome with a lead dancer, who's an old friend of his wife, who encourages him to play when he's away for a while, and she told me she is leaving soon for wing ceremony, Ujaran said. And what did she say about the unspeakable things comment? Kali asked slyly. She thinks it is good that you are so willing to share me. He sounded embarrassed. I'm jealous, Strawberry giggled. I'm just not sure who I should be jealous of. Me, Ujaran said. My wife is the best. The three of them laughed briefly together. Strawberry stopped first. Ujaran smirked. There is no way to bring her back with us tonight. Strawberry pouted. When we were at the playhouse, we did it while straddling his legs, Kali said to Strawberry with a mischievous grin. What did you have in mind? The Herisham smiled at Kali, licked her lips, and watched Ujaran with a salacious smile, wetting her lips frequently. I'm more interested in you, Tails. I just want to lay down, and kiss you, caress you, Touch you all over, feel my body lying on top of yours. Get each other all hot and sweaty. Lips to lips, breasts to breasts, pelvis to pelvis. Then he climbs on top of the two of us. He slides one of his cocks in each of us, so the more the two of us grind against each other, the harder we ride him. It would be like we're all fucking each other with his throbbing cocks. Ujaran's eyes were wide, his mouth open, and his breath labored. Strawberry smiled to Kali while tilting her head toward him. They both scooted their stools closer to him on either side, braced a hand on one of his legs, and leaned across in front of him and kissed. He gulped heavily and said, "Give me time to think. I will find a way." Kali almost knocked her Shagar mask off as it collided with Strawberry's cat mask. Giggling, they both sat back on their stools. "What breed of Terran are you?" Ujaran asked abruptly. "Herisham," Strawberry answered. "Which colony site?" he asked. "Pizak or Zeroki?" "I'm third generation," Strawberry replied. "My grandfather was relocated to the Geladian cyberpath colony on Zeroki. My family migrated to Horitz a few years after the Information Society lost control of the system." "I don't know anything about Herisham," Kali muttered. "Has the infant mortality rate improved?" Ujaran asked. "Probably," Strawberry shrugged. "We keep getting better at detecting and sealing cyberpathy." "I'm lost," Kali said with a smirk. "Sorry," Ujaran said. "Herisham can be born with cyberpathy, psionics, or both." "I got it," Kali said. "They can't survive being born with incompatible knacks, just like with Dark Force and Law. When a baby is born with both, they seal away their cyberpathy. They live, but it has some weird side effects." "Do your people still have the highest cyberpath population?" Ujaran asked. "I doubt it. Our total population is only a few million," Strawberry shrugged. "Per capita? Probably." "You do realize he only changed the topic because he was getting really turned on," Kali snickered. "I've never met a man who can think straight when his cock is crowing." Strawberry puckered her lips and winked. "When his what?" Kali covered her mouth to stifle her laughter. "I could try disabling the cameras," Strawberry said. "No good," Ujaran said. "Observer team will panic." "Jax turned them off," Kali countered. "He is an administrator. He can do that," Ujaran grumbled. "I'm not worried about Jax," Kali sighed. "If I bring a girl back to fool around with, he'd probably just want to watch. I don't know much about anyone else who works there, but Lilac will have a fit. She came here after her shift, stayed a while, gave up, and went home. She will find out next time she reports for work." Ujaran rubbed his chin as he spoke. "There are other people on her team, but they don't have reason to care what you want." "Actually," Kali said thoughtfully, "there is one. Can you contact Shugok? Is he still assigned to my care? I haven't seen them since the LAM fiasco." "I will check," he said while picking up his tablet. "He and I had a conversation about conjugal visits once," Kali said. "I can't trick him as easy as Lilac, but we might be able to get him to approve a guest for the evening. Just make sure it sounds inconsequential. Keep close to the truth. I met someone at an anonymous club, and want to bring her back for the night, and you'll be there too." "Wait, what do you do, officially?" "Keep you under control," he chuckled softly. "Really?" Kali giggled. "I'd like to see her out of control." Strawberry grinned mischievously. "No, you don't," he said while eyeing Kali. "I don't know what it would look like. Actually, I have seen what happens when you're no longer in control, haven't I?" Strawberry raised an eyebrow. "Double, I was flirting. Why are you being so serious all of a sudden?" Ujaran ignored her. "How serious are you about wanting to keep this Herisham girl around?" "She's fun," Kali said. "I like her. I don't expect her to keep pace, if that's what you're asking. It sounds like lots of fun for a night, Ujaran said, but what's going to happen when she learns more about you and your situation? If she runs, what happens then? I'm right here, Strawberry said indignantly. She won't, Kali said. Well, not for long. I have faith in her, and I do control one of the most technologically advanced facilities in all of Corrales. I just heard the outcome of yesterday's vote, he said while staring at his tablet. Do you want me to tell you now or wait until she's not around, Your Majesty? Now, Kali said without hesitation. Strawberry started to giggle but stopped abruptly. If you're sure, Ujaran said. The parliamentary flock, Dinarok Nation, and the Triad Confederacy pulled back their forces and urged the Acrididae dynasty to release their captives or face the consequences alone. Jikatiknikt was publicly executed an hour after the vote was cast. Less than 3 hours later Cletheria withdrew. The Midnight Fellowship now consists of 3 factions. The Acrididae dynasty was completely obliterated in less than 2 hours. I'm sure there were some who weren't around their home system, but for all intents and purposes, the Loctarian race is now extinct. Actions have consequences, Kali sighed. I warned Jake and Tiki not to trust the Loctarian government's offer. All he ever wanted to do was serve his people, and their betrayal of him ended with genocide. The dynasty had a population of 250 billion, Ujaran said. They're all dead now. That's horrible, Strawberry said softly. The Loctarians lost their telepaths, their homeworld, and were almost wiped out the first time they angered my collective, Kali snarled. History only repeats when you refuse to learn from it. I hope the Midnight Fellowship understands this is the consequence of the Loctarians' actions, not mine. Wait, why would anyone blame you? Strawberry asked. I almost ran when I first found out, Ujaran admitted. If you really have faith in her, tell her. Do that and I'll deal with Lilac and Shugok, okay? I'm not having fun anymore, Strawberry grumbled. Sorry, Kali said weakly. I'm not sure if he's trying to protect me or you at this point. Both, Ujaran said. We must think of how and where you are held. Armed guards, security-restricted communication, the runes on the floor, and the hole in the ceiling under a geosynchronous attack satellite. How do we explain this to her? You are confined in a place designed to contain possible changelings. Do you think she has security clearance to know you are here as a prisoner of Kulani? Is there danger in knowing? This is the second time they let me take you into town. They can remove my access. They can lock you away, close off the sky, fix the floor, and leave you there. That is you. What can they do to her? And what will happen when you're gone? I will do what I can to make sure neither of you are here when they come to free me. I've been sitting here while you two go back and forth, Strawberry said angrily. I said I'd do what I can to help you. How about helping me? What in the powers are you talking about? Panic seized Kali. She took a deep breath and blurted out the words, I'm the Cletharian Queen. You mean all those dead people? If Mistress Kulani didn't have me locked up here, I might have been able to do something, but if I help you, does that mean I'm actually fighting against the government? Strawberry looked shocked. Yes, Ujaran said emphatically. It is dangerous. Sounds fun, Strawberry said, clapping her hands together in delight. My life has been so dull. Finally, something interesting. He looked back and forth between the two women. I will contact Shugok.